Hello and welcome to Wanna Hear Something Weird? A weekly weird podcast about weekly weird stuff. I'm one of your hosts, Tom.
I'm Lauren. If you can't tell by that intro, it's going to be a weird week.
Yeah, did you say Lauren? I thought
maybe.
you said your own name wrong.
Is my name Lauren?
Or that I had been under a false impression this entire time. That would be a weird one. Want to hear something weird?
I've been lying to you about
You've
my
been
age.
lying about your name.
Years.
Yeah. And if you're lying
And
about
so
that,
is
who knows what else you're lying about? String of mysteriously dead husbands
How do you know about that?
died under strange circumstances and left everything to their recent, much younger wife.
I don't know. I plead the fifth.
Well, let me ask you about another weird thing then.
All right.
That's
It is appropriate.
not connected to your potential past life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about crop circles?
Ooh.
Let me ask you this. Are you what they refer to as a crappie?
No.
Okay, so what is your
I'm not really sure.
You're not what?
I'm
You have
not
to speak up.
I'm not so sure about
You're not
these
so
crop
sure.
circles.
Oh, so you don't think crop circles are anything?
I think that there are things that are weird in fields.
Okay.
It's been a long day, everybody. But I'm hesitant to believe that it's because of aliens.
Okay, well.
So I guess I think that's sort of the line. You know how UFOs exist, but
Yeah.
are UFOs aliens?
Right.
It's kind of the same
Unidentified
idea.
flying objects exists, but we don't.
Yes, that is what UFO stands for.
Right, but I'm just saying that because I always find that kind of frustrating when people are like, I don't believe in UFOs. And it's like, well, no, there are things that aren't identified and aren't identified by people like the government who are very good at identifying things flying.
Right.
You know, they've got them all cataloged. So if they don't know what it is, they know what it is. Actually, I don't know if they know what it is.
That's wishful thinking.
Yeah,
I think. But so same idea as for crop circles. I think that they exist and people don't maybe know what they are, but I don't know. Are they alien?
Right. Okay. So you don't necessarily think they're all hoaxes?
No.
Okay. Well, that was a big pause there. So
I'm not feeling strongly one way or the other, though.
Right.
Let's make that clear.
Well, now I'm wishing that I had sworn you in before we started recording so that we could get these answers on the record. Well, let me start by talking about kind of like I'm going to say modern day origins of crop circles, but this is almost 400 years ago still. But it's one of the earliest examples that we have that isn't, I guess that's very specific to the idea of crop circles. You know, we have like folklore and stuff of other things, but it's not just a specific, sometimes the crops are weird. Mm-hmm. And this seems like it was potentially the first time that somebody was talking about just this. It was the Mowing Devil or Strange News of Hertfordshire. It's the title of a English woodcut pamphlet published back in 1678. Remember, we're big fans of woodcut pamphlets on this show. That was the Battle of Nuremberg, I think it was. It was also the news of that was spread via woodcut pamphlet. So might have to be where I start getting all my news, to be honest.
I think you should.
If it didn't come from a woodcut, then I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So the pamphlet tells of a farmer in Hertfordshire who, refusing to pay the price demanded by a laborer to mow his field, swore he would rather the devil mowed it instead. So I guess like a guy came to his door or whatever, was like, hey, I'm a laborer, I'll mow your field 100 shillings or whatever. And the guy, I'd rather have the devil do it than pay you that much. According to the pamphlet, that night his field appeared in flame. The next morning, the field was found to be perfectly mowed, that no mortal man was able to do the like. This pamphlet and the accompanying illustration are often cited by crop circle researchers as among the first recorded cases of crop circles.
Are there any indications that, I mean, it sounds like based on that, it's just a perfectly mowed lawn, but are there circles?
I'm leaving out an important detail, which is the woodcut illustration looks very much like a crop circle.
Mm.
It shows like a little devil guy with like a push mower, but going in like concentric circles outward.
I see.
So I think that's why people point to it more, what it looks like, but also the fact that, according to this story, it appeared overnight. The field was in flames, but who knows? That could have just been a bright light or something like that causing it. And the next day it was mowed. I mean, I guess also like back then you couldn't get up high enough to see anything,
Yeah.
So it might have been a pattern, and
that's
like,
right.
Well, yeah, it looks good to me.
Looks pretty perfect from, this angle.
Yeah.
Right.
A few years later, there was this guy, Robert Plot. He was an English naturalist, and he noted rings or arcs of mushrooms, aka fairy rings, which he put down to airflows from the sky. So I guess I was trying to figure out exactly what this means, because it says he noted rings or arcs of mushrooms, aka fairy rings. Now, fairy rings are like rings on the ground, I think usually like made out of rocks and stuff. Right? You know about fairy rings? You know about fairy rings.
I don't know a thing about fairy rings. I hate to tell you.
You got to get out in the English countryside more and learn about all of the things in the woods out there.
I guess so. I would love to.
But you can't you're not supposed to like break a fairy ring. So this sounds like this guy was potentially talking about something much bigger than a normal fairy ring. So again, it sounds like it could have been,
okay.
A crop circle.
Okay.
But really, where we started getting into crop circle things, was the 1970s. There's a big craze, the crop circle craze. I was going to ask if you remember this, but neither of us were alive in the 1970s, so we wouldn't remember it. But have you ever heard about this?
I did not. I have not.
So there's in the 70s in rural England, there was kind of like almost like a crop circle craze. A lot of crop circles popping up. That was what I had alluded to earlier when I asked if you were a crappie. That was the name given to the looky-loos, the people who maybe even weren't from the local area, but had traveled either to see a crop circle that, had already been made, or to hope to see one being made. Now, there were guys that came out in the 90s. Let me find their names here. Doug Bauer and Dave Charlie. Now, these guys came out and basically said, yeah, that was us. We did all those crop circles. From the 70s till the early 90s, that was us. Here, we'll show you how we did it.
Oh.
We had a big plank of wood, and we had 2 pieces of rope connected to it. And you would just kind of hold on to the rope, put the plank down, step on the plank. That would flatten all the crops. And then, you move it forward a little bit more, step again, forward, step again. And that the way they would get concentric circles was that they would put, I guess, essentially like a pole with a string tied to a hat that they would wear, so that they could, keep the string taut and know, like, okay, if I keep going, that's going to make a perfect circle here.
That sounds complicated.
It does sound complicated. You know what else it sounds like?
Bullshit.
A bunch of CIA subterfuge. Send these guys in, say they did everything. Okay. Have them show everybody.
Spoken like a real crappie.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you some things about these crop circles that's going to make you go,
Okay. I'm prepared to go.
That's going to make you say, you know what? I don't know if that was, what are their names? Dave and Bob, Doug and Dave. I don't think it was them at all. I think it was something else.
Well.
Entirely.
You heard it here, folks.
So, we're going to talk about this guy, William Levengood. And boy, was he good, because he was a cool scientist. He sadly passed away in 2013, I believe. But he was an American biophysicist and one of the few scientists to systematically study crop circles. So before this, people were into it maybe, but they weren't scientists. They weren't approaching it scientifically. Where this guy was a biophysicist. He knew about this stuff. He knew what to look for, and he started taking a closer look. And here's some of the things he found. So the big one was that in the crop circles that he investigated, well, I guess he investigated a lot, and he investigated some that, seemed like they were indeed hoaxes. But in those ones, when you push the plants down, push the crops down in that way, it breaks the plant to do that. So it kind of leaves like a telltale, you can tell that's what happened. That was not the case in a lot of the crop circles that he investigated. Instead, he found that the plants were actually tipped over, kind of. And this is not tipped over, but it wasn't. It's hard to explain.
It's crushed?
Not crushed.
So
instead, what had happened was they had experienced two things. Node elongation. So he found that plants within crop circles often had elongated nodes. And now those are the growth points along the stem. So if you think about the stem of a plant and it's got little kind of like bumps every once in a while, that's where it grows from. So these were elongated. The elongation was attributed to exposure of intense bursts of heat or microwave energy, which caused the cells to explode. And now this was coupled with expulsion cavities. He observed microscopic holes in the plant stems, referred to as expulsion cavities, which he believed was caused by rapid heating and vaporization of the internal moisture of the plants. I have a little bit that's, I guess, gets into a little more detail here that I'll read. Plants inside crop circles often exhibited nodes that were significantly longer than those outside. Levengood's analysis suggested that this elongation was caused by rapid heating, which made the cell walls stretch as internal steam pressure built up. The cavities were microscopic holes in plant stems formed by the sudden escape of steam created by rapid internal heating. This effect was not typically found in plants outside the circles. So, what he hypothesized was happening, and I should be clear that he didn't think this was UFOs, by the way. But the only thing that he could, basically it looked like these nodes are kind of the same thing happened to them that happens to a popcorn kernel.
Oh, okay.
That it heated up very quickly, creating steam from the water vapor that was in there, and kind of popped that part of the plant, causing the rest of it to tilt over, to fall over.
Huh.
Now, he believes it was microwave energy that did this because the rest of the plant was relatively undamaged. It was only the water that, and microwaves excite water molecules. That's how they work. That's how our microwave oven works. That's what had happened here. The same thing.
Huh.
Now, his idea for this, I don't know why I'm laughing at it. Like, this is crazier than UFOs, but was the plasma vortex hypothesis.
Okay.
Levengood proposed that crop circles might be created by a complex atmospheric phenomenon he called a spinning plasma vortex. This vortex, composed of ionized air and electromagnetic energy, could theoretically interact with the Earth's surface to produce the crop circle formations and the observed plant anomalies. So basically, he thought, something similar like a lightning storm, like a very rare phenomena, but indeed a natural weather phenomena that could cause these things. Other people have kind of taken that idea and run with it, skeptics, and said, okay, well, then that explains it. Somebody out there is using like some kind of microwave gun to do this, to make these plants. And maybe that even explains how they're able to do it so quickly, you know, because these things appear overnight in just about every reported case. You know, it wasn't there the day before, and then one day it just is. The problem with the microwave gun is they don't exist really. And especially in the 70s, it would have been a gigantic thing to have been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it seems like it would have been overkill, because if this guy hadn't come along to investigate these things, it sounds like people would have just thought, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it was just a stick. You know, that's how they knocked him all over.
Right.
One theory about what's going on here is that the aliens might be trying to introduce themselves to us.
Tell me more.
Apparently, when we want to talk to dolphins, humans that is, we put little bubble circles under the ocean with a generator, and we watch the dolphins come up and play and investigate, and we study them. We don't just go into the ocean and start screaming at dolphins, right? You go, hey, look at this little thing, huh? What do you think about this? And the dolphin comes over, starts playing with it. And then maybe you slowly creep up on him and go like, hey, I put that there.
Okay.
You know, you don't buy that? You don't believe that?
Well, okay. To what end?
What do you mean to what end? To study dolphins.
No, but what about aliens?
To study us. They're looking at all the crappies. They're going out to look at the crop circle.
I guess.
And then you don't sound very convinced.
I'm not sure about that.
All right. Well,
I'm the authority.
After the break, I've got even more hard evidence that you're not going to be able to believe. Okay. I'm going to fast forward. Then I'm going to rewind. It's going to be a little confusing. I want to fast forward to the early 2000s. But before I do that, as I said, I'm going to rewind for a minute and talk about how in 1974, we sent out, again being humans, the Arecibo message, I believe is how you would pronounce this. It's transmitted by the Arecibo. Actually, I bet it's probably because it's in Puerto Rico. Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. We sent out a message, a binary encoded message aimed at communicating with potential extraterrestrial civilizations. The team was led by Carl Sagan. It had an international radio message, information about humanity, Earth's biology, all this kind of stuff. So here's some of the stuff it had. The numbers 1 through 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I've heard of them.
Showing them like we have a base 10 system. The atomic numbers of the elements hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, which make up DNA. The formulas for the chemical compounds that make up the nucleotides of DNA. Estimated number of DNA nucleotides, and a graphic of the double helix. A average man represented in physical height of like 5'9". It was a human being, and also like dots to illustrate that we had 4 billion people on Earth at the time. A graphic of the solar system indicating which planet was ours, and a graphic of the radio telescope that was, transmitting this message. Now, here's the problem. All of a sudden, they answered it.
With crop circles.
They answered it with a crop circle with a nearly identical response. It was formatted the same way. And they left this.
He's pulling up a photo, I'm assuming. I'm just narrating what you're doing.
Okay, so it's known as the Hampshire pattern, or the Chilbolton code formation, or the Arecibo answer. It was a crop circle that appeared in 2001 near the Chilbolton radio telescope in Hampshire, UK. which echoed the visual representation and most of the information in the original message. But there were some differences, including most the chemical data or the DNA data. It had silicon added to the DNA, indicating that their DNA has silicon in it. At the bottom, it's a picture, instead of like a little human guy, it's a little, gray alien with big head and big eyes. A solar system with 9 planets, emphasis placed on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th planet, implying that's the planets they reside on. And they replaced the telescope with a replica of a crop circle that appeared in the same field 1 year before. And now the pictures of this crop are pretty crazy, this crop formation next to this radio telescope. It definitely looks like the type of thing that, I don't know, somebody would have noticed happening. Of course, it seems very silly, that's how a response would come, but I don't know, right?
So the response was a crop circle, and all of that was in the crop circle somehow?
Yes. Yeah. They basically, made a crop circle that is a black and white, representation of all that information.
1 year later?
No, like 16 years later, 15 years later.
Okay.
But it was a year after there had been a crop circle in that same field.
Okay. Do we think it was just hoaxers?
See, that's the kind of funny thing. Like, even if you look at the Wikipedia, this part is referred to as the Arecibo answer crop circle hoax. But there's no evidence that it was a hoax. Nobody's ever come forward and claimed that they did it. Nobody's ever gotten caught. There's really not been an explanation to it. It's just kind of assumed that it's a hoax. And it's kind of funny to me because I was reading like some of the arguments about it and the explanations. And basically it's, look, when we sent that radio signal out, we were aiming it towards a galaxy 25,000 light years away. So it wouldn't even hit that galaxy till then. And there's such a small chance it would even work and that somebody would even get it, blah, blah, blah. All these things to the point where it made me go like, well, then why'd you even do it? Were you never going to believe any answer that came back? I guess not. And I don't know, maybe they got that answer and somehow the quickest way for them to respond is through ruining some crops, which was another interesting part of what's his name's research, Dr. Levengood I was talking about. Because a big part of his thing was he said, it's not like when these crop circles happen, they just throw out all those crops. Like those crops are still harvested and put into the food supply. Like, shouldn't we know what's causing, and again, he was pretty skeptical, it sounds like, of, crazy hypotheses, but he was basically like, shouldn't we make sure this stuff's safe to eat before we just kind of write it all off?
That's fair.
Yeah. There was another response to this message because, seemingly nobody took the first one serious. This one was in Crabwood, England. I believe it was around the same time, maybe like a year later. This one, again, it's so wild looking that it just screams hoax. But who knows? Because it basically looks like a picture of an alien, like a gray alien, but it's like 3D almost. Like it looks like a promotional graphic for a video game or something. And then he's holding a disc that's facing, that is like a crop circle essentially. And that disc has a pattern on it. And now, of course, people went and cracked that pattern. And apparently the pattern says this: beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception, conduit closing, bell sound. What do you think of that?
Huh? That's what I think.
What was that?
That's what I think. Huh?
I think that also kind of strikes me as like, I mean, it would be amazing if it was real, because it would just be amazing if it was like freaking translation software. Like, why did it transcribe the noise? Like, they didn't need the bell noise. That was, that was me getting a notification. I got a message. Yeah, because the writing, like the some letters are capitalized. I think maybe some of the spelling's wrong. So to say nothing of the fact that people are like, why would they do this in like ASCII art and then, translate it to English? Like, again, that seems very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't they answer us the same way we sent them a message in binary or whatever? But oh, who knows? Hey, maybe it's not aliens answering these
Maybe
questions.
not.
Maybe it's the guys underground. So yeah, that's what's going on nowadays in the world of.
Seems like a lot's happening in England. What's going on with that?
Well, a lot of this stuff is happening or was happening like around Stonehenge and stuff like that. Like parts of England that are very, very old and ancient and, already kind of mysterious, are, places where there are ruins that they don't really, they don't know exactly who left them there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, you don't hear about crop circles as much anymore. And some people have said that the reason for that is phones, that basically like people aren't bored in the middle of the country anymore, especially teenagers that like would have the time to meticulously plan this and spend all night in a cold field doing this. Just for, the satisfaction of tricking everyone.
Yeah.
So people say that that's why they just aren't reported as often. But it is very weird to me that these guys came forward in the 90s, said they did it, really offered not much. I think they did do some of them for sure, but they really didn't offer all that much evidence. And it was just kind of written off as like, oh, these two guys said they did it. And the mainstream media kind of moved away from it and was like, it's silly. It's just a hoax.
I see. Huh.
But, there's real strangeness there. The last one I want to talk about, and I have a quick email I want to read. August 13th, 2001. This was in Wiltshire, England, where there have been a lot of these things over the years. This was a crop circle that appeared overnight. It contained 409 circles in a spiral pattern more than 450 meters across. So this thing's massive. And 409 individual circles in like a very intricate pattern, like a fractal-like pattern. Whoever, did this would have had to have spent less than 30 seconds making each of those circles to have gotten it done in a night.
Wow.
There's no footprints. No footprints were found anywhere between there. Skeptics said that they were pole vaulting between the different circles.
That's commitment, but
well, it's like, at what point is it more ridiculous to think that, some 60-year-old like bored drunk in the country's pole vaulting around doing this, or that it's aliens?
Yeah, that's fair.
Quick mailbag item here I wanted to bring up. Read, hi there, love the pod, but one of you mentioned on a previous episode that you had already covered the ghost mongoose of the Isle of Man. Now, this was a favorite of my sister and I when we were little and obsessively going through our ghosts, UFOs, and unexplained mysteries book, and yet I cannot find the episode on the feed at all. Did you imagine doing it? Is this an alternate universe situation?
Oh, man.
Has it been stolen by a mischievous djinn? Whatever the reason, I need you to cover it because Jeff, the Ghost Mongoose, is a story that always warrants examination. Keep up the great work, and if you feel like doing longer episodes or 2 a week, I will be there for it. All the best, Adrian. I think this is last week we mentioned Jeff the Mongoose. That was that our unaired pilot episode of this show? was Chef the Mongoose.
Oh gosh, was it?
It was either what? It was a test show I think we did that we never actually put out, I believe.
Oh my goodness, I think you're right.
So we may have to either revisit that or put that episode out because Jeff the Talking Mongoose is a pretty GEF is a pretty good tale.
I can't believe I misspoke.
Yeah. And then you made this guy think he had Mandela affected into a different universe.
I wholeheartedly apologize, and I appreciate your very kind words. We will swiftly
rectify the situation. All right. I think that's all for this week. If you like the show, why not give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? That really helps out young upcoming shows. You can follow us on social media at WannaHearPod. And if something we've said is driving you crazy, you can email us wannahearpod@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next week.
Want to Hear Something Weird is a Clamor audio production, distributed by the Cloud 10 Network. Hosted and executive produced by Tom Reynolds and me, Laura Anderson. Executive produced by Aaron Hilliard.
Clamor General Manager Rich Statter. Associate Producer Ethan Aronson. Post-production supervised by Devin Ruskin. Production Assistant Samara Mullick. Special thanks to Sim Sarna and Saiba Krieger at Cloud 10.
Seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device or play on PC through Facebook Games.